Expansion of Tongil-type rice cultivation.
In this segment, we will examine the victorious narrative of South Korea's Green Revolution as declared by President Park Chung-hee in 1977. We will explore how the expansion of Tongil-type rice varieties finally led to achieving rice self-sufficiency, culminating in record-breaking yields and national celebration. However, we will also analyze the inherent contradictions and limitations of this agricultural modernization, which ultimately contributed to the system's decline. In 1977, the total cultivation area of Tongil-type rice varieties surpassed that of Japonica varieties for the first time. Tongil-type rice accounted for 54% of the total rice cultivation area, covering 660,000 hectares. Despite the failure in the previous year, Yushin rice was also cultivated on 233,800 hectares, a reduction of approximately 20%. Meanwhile, newly introduced Tongil-type varieties such as Milyang 21 and Milyang 23 saw significant expansion. In South Jeolla Province, Tongil-type rice was cultivated on 154,000 hectares, comprising as much as 3/4 of the region's total rice paddies. Some counties, including Gokseong, Gwangju, Gunsan, Damyeong, Gurye, and Jangsong, recorded over 90% of their total rice fields planted with Tongil-type varieties. Similarly, in North Chungcheong Province, 74% of all rice paddies were occupied by Tongil-type. Additionally, the use of insulated seed beds, essential for cultivating Tongil-type varieties, increased to 81%, and the average planting density rose to 80 seedlings per square meter, significantly enhancing high yield factors.
Record high yields and celebration.
Despite unfavorable weather in 1977, the absence of major pest infestations led to an overall increase in rice yields. Although Milyang 21 and Milyang 23 were again proven vulnerable to bacterial leaf blight, no widespread damage occurred that year. Consequently, the total rice production reached 41.7 million seok, exceeding the target of 36.5 million seok by 14% and surpassing the 40 million seok mark for the first time ever, only 3 years after exceeding 30 million. The national average yield was 494 kg per 10 acres or 1 danbo, surpassing Japan's previous world record of 447 kg. The regional yield record was set in South Chungcheong Province, where 552 kg per 1 danbo, surpassing the previous regional world record of 523 kg set in Japan's Yamagata Prefecture in 1975. South Jeolla and North Chungcheong provinces also exceeded 500 kg per 1 danbo, declaring the achievement as the accomplishment of the Green Revolution. President Park Chung-hee awarded medals and monetary rewards to key contributors. On December 9, 1977, during the National Sema Leaders Convention in Jeonju, Park celebrated the rice surplus, emphasizing the pride and significance of achieving self-sufficiency in staple grain. On December 20th, he presented a calligraphy titled "Accomplish the Green Revolution" to the Rural Development Administration and granted medals and special rewards to RDA researchers and officials who contributed to the development and promotion of Tongil rice. The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries commemorated the historic production of 40 million seok by awarding 40 million seok commemorative towers to each provincial governor, while provinces with an average yield exceeding 500 kg per danbo received 500 kg achievement towers. Additionally, all high-ranking officials in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries were given small-scale replicas of the commemorative tower. On December 28th and 30th, numerous government officials and researchers, including Moon Hae-ho, the head of the crop experiment station Choi Hyun-ok, and the director of the RDA Experimentation Bureau Ha Myung-soo, received honors. Earlier in the year, on May 16th, Ho also won the May 16 National Award for Academic Achievement, which was an immense prestige during the Park Chung-hee era.
Policy shifts and emerging economic contradictions.
The celebration was not contained inside the circle of academics and public officers. In December 1977, after 14 years, the government lifted the ban on producing rice-based makgeolli, abolished the mandatory limitation in rice milling ratio of under 70%, and reversed the prohibition on using rice for processed foods such as rice cakes and syrup. On the day rice makgeolli sales resumed, long lines formed in front of urban taverns. Korean citizens who had been dissatisfied with wheat-based makgeolli gathered to reunite with the beloved rice-based makgeolli. Although this measure should be interpreted within the political context that the upcoming general election was scheduled in the following year, it undeniably brought great joy and relief to the public. Additionally, the government provided 486,000 sok of rice as a loan to Indonesia. The government used this as political propaganda, claiming, quote, "A country that once had to import rice due to shortages has now become so abundant in rice that it can export," end quote. The celebratory events extended into 1978. On March 13th, Kim Min-hwan, head of the RDA, designated its main auditorium as the cradle of the Green Revolution. And on May 10th, the Green Revolution Achievement Tower was unveiled. Funded by donations from 14 government officials who received awards in 1977, the tower symbolized the success of the high-yield rice program. On the same day, the government awarded the Bronze Tower Order of Industrial Service Merit to Henry M. Beecher of the International Rice Research Institute for his advisory role in developing and disseminating Tongil-type rice. Agriculture Minister Jang Deok-jin also presented a plaque of appreciation to IRRI through Deputy Director M.R. Vega. In an interview following the award ceremony, Beecher congratulated Korea on achieving rice self-sufficiency and suggested that future efforts focus on achieving self-sufficiency in barley and other grains.
The dual nature of agricultural modernization, opportunities and constraints.
For some farmers, the early to mid-1970s represented a period of opportunity. Those who actively cooperated with government policies benefited from agricultural extension support, enhancing their economic standing and political influence within rural communities. By adopting modern farming techniques made accessible through government programs, these farmers not only increased their income but also contributed to a qualitative transformation of Korean agriculture. As a result, most farmers by the late 1970s had integrated modern agricultural technologies and market-driven farming practices, integrating themselves into the national cash economy. However, this takeoff in agricultural modernization had inherent limitations. First, the transformation was not achieved through capital accumulation from agricultural sector. Rather, it relied on urban investments in farm inputs and credits, partly as a compensation for the long history of extraction of rural surplus for industrialization. Second, this dependence on urban financial inflows led to a sharp increase in farm debt. While farmers benefited to some extent, urban interests gained disproportionately from integrating rural communities into market-based economic structures, exacerbating rural-urban income disparities. Third, the modernization process was not only irreversible, but also coercive. Farmers had little autonomy to opt out of the technological system of the Green Revolution. While participating in government-led programs was often advantageous, farmers faced the institutional and at times physical coercion if they resisted policies that proved detrimental to their interests.
The decline of high-yield system and policy shifts.
By the late 1970s, mounting issues with new rice varieties, including recurrent pest outbreaks, led to increased farmer skepticism. Resistance against state-imposed agricultural policies intensified. The broader economic context also shifted. The government's full-scale investment in heavy and chemical industries from the early 1970s failed to yield expected returns by the late 1970s, leading to financial strain. The 1973 oil crisis further compounded these issues, slowing economic growth. In response, the government prioritized industrial recovery, officially abandoning the dual price policy for rice in 1978 and expanding agricultural imports, particularly vegetables. The cost of maintaining the technological system of the Green Revolution had grown unsustainable for the state. However, dismantling the technological system of the Green Revolution proved difficult. Both farmers and government agencies had become deeply entrenched in the paradigm of yield maximization and price-controlled rice purchases. Attempts to transition from quantity-driven to quality-focused production stalled due to institutional inertia and entrenched economic interests. Consequently, despite policy declarations to shift toward quality-based agriculture in 1977, the government entered 1978 without a clear roadmap for transitioning beyond the high-yield system. The contradictions of the system culminated in 1978 as agricultural market liberalization and a severe outbreak of rice blast disease triggered widespread discontent among farmers, bringing unresolved tensions to the forefront.